Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I get a lot of questions about the little intro that I made at the beginning of my videos that looks just like this. And I made that in Adobe After Effects. I'm not a pro at Adobe After Effects. It took me about 6 hours to create that 2-second animation, but here was the process of how that came to be. Step 1 was to research. Basically, this entailed finding some YouTubers that had some cool intros, finding some other things, seeing what I liked about theirs, and then kind of creating my own. And I knew that I wanted something simple and I wanted something short. Step 2 is to learn the basics of After Effects. I found 2 videos that were exactly what I was looking for. One of them I really liked because it had text coming out of a line going up and going down. I liked that idea. The other one I liked this cool effect where there was this little dotted shape kind of going around in a circle a little bit at a time. And I felt both of those were a good starting point to kind of get me going in the direction that I wanted to go. Step 3 was create a mock layout. I knew I wanted my name in there, I knew I wanted media in there, and I knew I wanted to be very, very simple, mainly because I didn't think I had the skills to make a complex one at this point, and it kind of fit the vibe of a lot of the kind of tech stuff that I already did, using the Bebos new font, using just kind of black and white. I felt it'd be harder to screw up something that was really simple and basic. So step 4 was to decide where I wanted to start. I wanted a bevel background where it was kind of a little bit of a darker shade on the outside, kind of give it this a little bit more depth to it. I knew I wanted to start out with the center line kind of popping out, and I had a little bit of experience in something called keyframing with a lot of the stuff that I've done in video editing, and the keyframing is kind of like one of the core parts of how to make an animation happen. And so with keyframing, you can basically decide, okay, I want at this point, here's how big I want the line to be, and then at this point, I want it to be this big. And I kind of did this thing where I actually made it go out from 0% scale to 110% scale, and then kind of spring back in a little bit. I thought that would be a cool effect, kind of have it expand and come back in. Step 5 was to animate my name. I had to create what's called a Luma mask, which is basically kind of this hidden layer. I lined the hidden layer up with the center line, and then I made it so that I couldn't see the hidden layer, but it was still there. And then I basically looked at my first name and said, okay, I want you to treat the hidden layer like it's still there, and I want you to hide behind that hidden layer until I tell you to come up. Using keyframes, I basically said, okay, at this point, I want you to be down here behind the layer, and then by this point in the timeline, I want you to kind of pop back up, and I kind of did the same thing where it kind of went a little bit higher than it needed to go, and then bounced back down. And then I did the same thing with my last name, created another Luma matte layer, put it on the top side of the line, attached Gibson to it, and then had it hide behind the line or behind that layer and then come out with the exact same timing as my first name. So I kind of wanted to have a little outside border around my name, so I created a rectangle, and I wanted to make it a dotted rectangle. So I went in and made dashes, and I was able to change the size of the dashes and how close they were together and how they rotated around my name. So I kind of adjusted that so it looked as clean as possible. And then I was able to create something called a path, called a trim path, where you can say I want to start at 0%, and then I want you to trim a path all the way around to 100%. And then I just had to adjust the timing so that it ended, that little path that it took all the way around, started at the beginning and ended right when my first and last name land in their final position. Step 7 was get the media text to kind of pop out of the center. I wasn't sure how I wanted to do that. I tried a few things. First, I didn't like how expanded it was, so I kind of compacted it a little bit more. I felt it looked a little cleaner that way. And then I didn't like how the black line kind of went right through it, so I was like, well, maybe I can make a white rectangle behind it, and then have the media and the rectangle kind of pop out at the same time using a scale factor. So I tried that. I didn't really like how it looked. You could kind of tell that it kind of came in at unnatural directions, and I wasn't sure why it was doing that, so I thought, well, maybe if I try a black background with white text, that could look better. And I liked that because there's a little bit more contrast there, but you can still see that little black rectangle coming in. Kind of looks weird. So I went in and I thought, well, what if I rotate that black rectangle in the text so that it's completely sideways, and then it rotates out like that and reveals itself. But I didn't really like how that looked because it didn't really have this element of symmetry because it's kind of coming in from one side. I wanted it to kind of come through the center out to kind of maintain this symmetry. So I went back to the scale method, but realized there's this little link there that allows you to kind of decide whether you want to keep all of your scales moving at the same time, even keeping your X scale growing and shrinking in the same way and your Y scale growing and shrinking in the same way. And I realized that if I unlink that, perhaps I can adjust the X scale and have it just kind of start completely, basically invisible, and then expand out by adjusting the X scale. So I tried that both on the rectangle and on the text, and I liked how that looked. I had that expand out a little bit more than it needed to go and then come back in, and it was just what I was looking for. I was able to maintain that symmetry that I was looking for by having it come out through the center. Step 8 was the sound effects. I wanted a ticking sound for that dashed line that was going around the logo, so it would sound like tick, 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 like a really fast tick. I found one online. I downloaded that sound. I imported it into Adobe Audition. I made copies of it because it was only one little tick. I deleted some of the space in between those copies so that they were a lot closer together and it wasn't tick, 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 but more of a tick, 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 tick. I made it a little bit longer so that way hopefully it would be as long as I needed it to be. I saved that. I imported it into Adobe After Effects as a sound file. I pulled it into my timeline. The one that I had was a little bit shorter than I needed, so I just duplicated it. And then I had to go begin right when the dashed line begins and end when the dashed line ends. And there we go. Step 9 involved the finishing touches. I felt there was something missing. I felt that it was a little bit too open still. So I thought, well, what if I kind of created a solid line around the logo? And I thought, well, that's still not necessarily what I'm looking for. What if I kind of make it a little bit thicker and make it maybe the width of the text that I have on the screen? That did the trick. That was more of what I was looking for. I went ahead and animated that so it kind of popped out, not from the center, but just started to begin right outside of the dashed line, and that it would pop right when media came out, and that it would expand a little bit more again than it needed to. And then I found a little pop sound that I included right as it reached its peak. This was a huge learning experience for me. I'd virtually done nothing in Adobe After Effects before this. This took about 6 hours to do for a 3-second animation, but it was kind of just another reminder that you really can actually learn anything that you want. It's just kind of finding the resources that you need and knowing what resources would be best for you. For me, it was those 2 videos and just kind of taking it from there using my background knowledge. But my goal in sharing this was kind of a little bit of insight into the thought process and why I did what I did and how I kind of made it come together. So if you have any other ideas or requests for filmmaking tips, let me know. These are fun to make. I haven't been keeping up with the every Tuesday schedule. I'm a teacher by trade and it's the end of the school year. And I'm gonna be going to Kenya this summer. So I probably, unless I make a bunch of them and then schedule them out, I probably won't have that many then. But let me know what you'd like to see. And then I'll try to get them up there because these are fun and I'd like to be of help because the internet's helped me. So I'd like to give back. Anyways, thanks for watching and I will see you next week.